All right. Looks like
Awesome.
we are live.
Live again. Are we live on YouTube?
We are live on YouTube.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Great.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Welcome back.
Yeah, our second ever live stream. We still don't really know what we're doing, but it's kind of fun to tune in and be live and see what... Oh, now they can't see us. Oh, there we go. Cool. So today, those of you on YouTube probably know, but if you're tuning into this on Instagram, we wanted to talk about basically how we make money to do what we do.
It's probably the question that we get most often.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, how do you afford to do what you do? And we've talked a little bit about that, and that's a different live one that we're going to do. And if you look through our YouTube channel, there's some videos on there talking about how we use credit cards to our advantage and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
This one is focused on how we actually make money, because it turns out neither of us is independently wealthy.
Yeah.
So we actually do work.
Yeah, we don't live off savings.
No, that would be cool.
Nothing like that. We basically make all of the money that we spend, and doing what we do, we spend a lot of money for sure. Yeah, it's pretty darn expensive that someone saw us on the Money Matters podcast. That was
awesome.
Fun
that
to
was
do.
Really
that
fun.
was cool. But yeah, where was I?
We wanted to talk a little bit about sort of how we make money has changed over time.
Yeah.
And to respond to B Bowl on Instagram, that's something that we're trying to stick. We're trying to be good about talking about the topic we're planning to, just for our own sake, and so we can kind of do this for the people who are tuning in specifically for that. But please keep the questions coming, guys. If it's not something that's related, we will we'll mark it down and consider it for something. We'll get back to you and consider it for a future live one. So we wanted to talk a little bit about how the way we've made money has changed over time, because right now, basically all of our support comes from sponsorship. So we make money from sponsorship, but that has only been true for a couple of years now, and that has changed. And so we wanted to sort of talk about that process and how that's changed, and as always, throw questions out there, and we'll do our best to talk about them.
Yeah. So basically, it's really a lot. We get a lot of questions of how do you get sponsored? I want to travel and race around my bike, and sponsorship is pretty unreliable for, I don't know, what would you say, at least the first couple years that you're doing it. So it's not really a good game plan of I want to travel, I'm going to get sponsored. It definitely takes a lot of time to work up to it. We actually did, we've created a course basically for people who are serious about wanting to learn how to do sponsorship, but I know a lot of people are just kind of curious because they're like, how does that work? So we'll kind of get into it on that level, and if you're serious about being a sponsored athlete, reach out to us and we can get you hooked up with that course. But basically, most of our money comes from brands that we work with. They basically pay us to do our thing and race bikes, and it's pretty awesome, but it's also, there's a lot of work. We try really hard to basically return a good ROI for brands, so we spend a lot of time doing photo shoots and video shoots and representing our sponsors on social media and going to a lot of events. So there's a huge commitment level for sponsorship.
Yeah, and as you'll see on our Sid and Mackey Instagram, which is the one that you guys are watching this on, we don't have sponsors for that brand. That's our brand that we did together just recently, and right now we're keeping it just
ad-free for you guys,
basically. But if you follow us on our other sponsorship or our other Instagram channels, mine's Mackey Franklin, Sid's is Sid G. Schultz. If you follow us there, you'll see that we do sponsor shoutouts, and they're not usually in your face, this is the best product ever, because frankly, we work with companies that we believe in, so we already think it's the best product ever. We want to tell you something useful about it and why it's something that you should check out if you want to. But we're not going to try to shove stuff down people's throat because we don't think that's what people want. Like, if people are following us, they hopefully know what products we're using, and that's the relationship we have with sponsors, is that we are our own brands and we have a shared brand, and we want those brands to, like, we want to work with other people. We want to work with other companies as a brand. It's not like we're just a billboard for them to be able to, tell their stuff from.
Right, so someone asked how we pay bills such as healthcare, groceries, etc. So basically, as we said, our income this year comes predominantly from sponsorship. Like, we're given a budget. So this is on top of free product. Like, we are given a budget to work with, and then we just have to be really careful with budgeting that out over the course of the year, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. We do a lot of less this year, but like in the past, I've done a certain amount of freelance writing, which doesn't pay very well, but it does sort of like make up that gap when you're just not making enough. Mackie has a computer science degree, which comes in handy, like setting up live streams, super technical things like that.
And that's, I mean, as we said, that's changed. So when I graduated from college, I was like, all right, I want to race seriously and sort of make that my main source of income. But at that point, I couldn't, and that was fine. So I basically was like, all right, I'm gonna make ends meet by doing freelance web design. And so I built websites for a lot of people, specifically the bike industry, because I was already fairly well connected there. So I built a lot of websites, and it's a certain amount of work, but it paid fairly well, and it was something that I could do on the road. And that was really the most important thing for us, is that we were doing stuff on the road because we wanted to be able to be where we wanted to be.
Yeah.
So,
and just like with anything, if you want to make money and be nomadic or work remotely, basically that just requires a lot of commitment on your part to make that happen. I think a lot of people try to kind of like do it halfway to see if it's going to work, and I think that's a really hard way to do it. So sort of where we were at like 3 years ago is that we weren't really making very much money via sponsorship. We had covered our equipment costs, but we were still paying for like race entries and everything else,
airline
and just like
tickets
losing
and gas and
money
all that
on the
kind of
bike
stuff.
side of things.
Yeah.
But we were like, we want to do this full time, so we're just gonna start doing it full time, basically, and we're gonna fill in the gaps with money from freelance work. Basically, I worked part-time at an energy bar company, so it was like working remotely, and I did all of their like social media and Instagram and stuff for a certain amount a month, which wasn't very much, but it was enough to more or less live on.
Yeah, and obviously we're keeping stuff as inexpensive as we can. I mean, that's part of why we live in a van, is because we can keep our expenses down, and we don't have rent, and we don't have a mortgage, and so we can live on a lot less than a lot of people can because of some of those decisions.
So someone asked on Instagram if we make it beneficial for our sponsors because of content or because of races. It's both. It's definitely both.
Yeah.
We've tried really hard to not have our sponsorship 100% dependent on things we can't control, like results.
Because results, you show up at a race and you crash and you get stitches.
Yeah, everybody trains hard.
It happens.
So it's important to us to have, to be able to provide content and social media stuff, and just be able to engage people on a level that's a little bit more than just winning things. Which honestly, I think is more people relate to that anyway.
I mean, we hope so, seeing as you guys are here, but that's our goal, is we want to have, we want to have a relationship with people and meet cool people and like tell them what we're doing and hopefully inspire them to do what they want to do. And, part of the way we do that is through, sponsorship. We're able to make that happen, and, and that's cool, but it's not an easy way to do it, and it's not the solution for everybody. And I think the key for us is just figuring out how to make money that isn't location dependent. That's the key for us, is like we need to be able to be wherever. So if that was the most important thing.
Yeah, so Ricky asked if we have a Patreon. We do not right now. It is something we've talked about. We've gotten that question before. I think Patreon is awesome, and it's a really cool thing. And I think it is something we want to look into for our YouTube channel in the future. Right now, I think we're not really at the point where we feel like we merit that with the YouTube thing. Exactly, we're kind of floundering a little bit.
We're working on our YouTube, and we're trying to build it and get it to where we want. And once it's there, then we'll probably do a Patreon. But right now, we just want to get the content out there, and we'd love suggestions that anybody has. Go watch our videos, leave comments.
Yeah, let us know what you want to.
Yeah, let us know what you'd like to see. Or, and then Ashcraft asked in on Instagram. So he says, so send it or don't try working remotely at all. I'm not sure. That's not quite what we're saying. It's more that if your goal is to see if you can make money working remotely, it's hard to commit the time you need to working freelance without like going all in. So, if you've got a side project that you're working on, like, sure, try it and see how it's going, and if people are interested in it, and if they are, then that's really cool, and then maybe it can become a full-time thing. But it's really hard to put enough time into that side project without going full-time to be able to tell if it's something that you're going to be able to make work or not.
Yeah, I think it comes to like taking yourself seriously about it. Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to like dabble with doing a blog or like some freelance writing, and when you need the money, it kind of like lights a fire under there to like figure out how to monetize what you're doing, basically. Whereas otherwise it's more of a hobby. And that said, though, I think if you do like it, I think it would make a lot of sense to like scale down to part-time and do like part-time this, part-time that. But if you're thinking of it as something like, I want this to be a career, that's just a really different mindset than like, I'm going to poke around with this, freelance stuff and see if I make some money. Because you can't really make money doing freelance without hustling a lot. And same with sponsorship. So. And
I mean, another way that you can do it, and sort of what we did, is in college.
We're a long way from riding our bike on a slackline. I don't know if you could tell by that photo, but I fell off like half a second later. Actually, we're decent on the slackline, but yeah, the bike is a ways off.
But one thing that we sort of did and that we've seen other people do is spend some time, if you do have a full-time job, or assuming you have a full-time job, or like for us when we were in college, we were working but not spending a lot of money, because the way our college work is like the cost of the college included room and board and all that. So we were able to save some money in college. So then when we finished college, we were able to take that savings and be like, okay.
Except for the loans.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I had loans, but I was paying the minimum that I needed to on those, and then using that savings to...
You actually, I think this might be interesting to talk about, but Mackie actually was able to defer all of his student loans. I don't know if anyone else out there has this issue, and that made a ton of sense for the position that we were in, because he was able to not do monthly payments at all for
couple of years,
and then he paid it without it getting more interest.
So they were federal loans, and with federal loans you can defer them if you, basically you can do the income contingent repayment program, which basically means they only charge you based on what your income is. And my income was so low that my minimum monthly was nothing, and it was like once a year interest would be added on, but it wasn't constantly accruing interest. And then, and so I did that because I was like, okay, I'm not making really any money right now, or very little money right now. I can avoid paying my minimum on my student loans for the next couple of years as I build up my ability to make money, and then I can, start paying at that point. And then I actually had sort of a bump in income to the point where I was able to save enough money to put big chunks and pay off big chunks at a time. So instead of paying monthly, I was able to pay like half of it all in a year, which was really cool.
Yeah, and we are loan debt-free right now, which is awesome.
But
and something we really encourage you to work on, because it's definitely a first step, I think.
But yeah, so going back to the idea of having some kind of savings, if you're working at a full-time job and you're able to save some money, great. Like, do that until you have enough money to live for 6 months or a year, and then say, okay, for the next 6 months or year, I'm going to try this freelance thing, and I'm going to go all in. I'm going to try as hard as I can to make it happen and really make this my career, and then see what happens. And hopefully with that savings, you can then say, hey, now I was able to focus on this. I'm finding the clients I need. I'm ready to go and now do this full time. But it requires some work up front. You can't just jump into it with no money and no plan, because obviously that's not going to work well.
Yeah, so Mike asked, how long are we planning on living van life, and what are our plans after? We're definitely not like, we want to live in a van forever. I think there are those people on the internet who are like, this is the best thing ever. I mean, we're basically camping, which gets old.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy van life, but it's not our long-term goal. It works really well for what we're doing right now, which is traveling around and racing, and it means that we don't have extra expenses of a mortgage or rent or something. But at some point, we hope to save up enough money to buy some property and build a house.
And we have been able to save money living in the van. We were able to save enough money to do adult things, like open, what's that even called? The thingy?
An investment account.
Well, the investment, a real bank account
real
for
bank account.
Adults. And we kind of talked about this. We're like, well, right now we're really enjoying living in the van, and our van is kind of like a hunk of junk on wheels. So like, we don't know how long it'll last. We've been able to put away some money to buy another van, which might have amenities like air conditioning or cruise control, which would be sick. So we might upgrade soon, hopefully. But yeah, we kind of talked about it, and we're like, well, we're pretty stoked doing this now, so like at least like 3 years, in 3 years we could probably save the money we would need to do, except for a down payment on a house. But I think our problem now is we don't really know where we would want to live. We haven't really found that place where I'm like, yeah, I really want to be there like 12 months of the year.
For a long time. And like,
so I don't know.
And I don't think we're at the point where it would make sense yet. It'd be like, okay, A, we don't know where that would be, and B, it's like, okay, so we have chosen a place, we like it, we put down money, but like, what's the point? Because we're going to be gone for 9 months out of the year traveling and racing anyway. So
how much did we make? Well, both of us, I think. I made $0 my first year racing. I lost money my first year racing pro, probably. Mackie was in high school when we started racing pro, so it wasn't even trying. But
So Ricky asked, how much do we make our first year racing pro, or as pro riders? And to give a little background, I got my pro card in 2006, and pro card just means that you're racing at the highest category in mountain biking. And Sid got her pro card in 2013.
Never got a card though, because I race enduro.
Yeah, but anyway, so for me, I didn't start making money from racing until probably 4 years ago. So do the math on that. That was a lot of years racing where I was not making money, and then just recently have been able to actually make a living doing it. It's not easy, but it is possible. It just requires, once again, a lot of work and figuring out what it is that's valuable to sponsors. But yeah, first year racing pro, nothing, basically. And then for like a couple of years, it was like in the couple thousand range, like somewhere in the maybe 2 to like 10 range for a while. And then more recently, it's been enough to live off of.
We have made more than McDonald's employees.
More than McDonald's employees, yep.
I don't know if we'll say actual numbers, but considering our expenses are low, I think there's also, we could do an entire podcast about or whatever this is, a live thing about taxes as a self-employed mountain bike racer, because that's quite the process, but it does kind of mean that we end up writing off a lot of our living expenses because we're always going to races. So that helps a lot compared to, say, a McDonald's employee who's having that taken out of their check to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, we're writing off all of our travel, bike expenses, hotels because they're usually on the way to races, and we do that like twice a year anyway. What else? What other things? Training expenses, hotels, gyms, all that PT. Kind of stuff. Yeah, PT. Stitches. Fortunately, health insurance covered that one.
Yeah, how did we start working with Jameis? They approached us, actually, and that's something that we say in our sponsorship course is that you should never wait for people to approach you because it doesn't usually happen, but we kind of got really lucky there. We had an introduction in the industry. Basically, someone had asked someone, or the Jameis guys had asked someone, like, who should we approach? You know, we were getting into more enduro trail stuff, and they were like, oh, talk to
And it was another company we work with who knew us and knew what we did, and so they recommended us to Jameis, and that's how we got the connection, and then met them and explained what we did, and sort of went back and forth and figured out a relationship or partnership that's worked really nicely.
Yeah, they've been so fun to work with.
Yeah, they've been great.
Yeah. Sponsorship relationships are, I think that's one of the reasons that, we're telling you, like, this is how we make money, but for a lot of people, it's not really a fun or, like, easy way to make money. It's a lot of interpersonal stuff. Like
there are easier ways to make money.
You're juggling a lot of relationships with a lot of different companies to put together a program that pays well. I think we get paid by 6 different sponsors. Is that right? 6 or 7. And then we work with a lot of sponsors just on a product level. And you have to be really careful with like outlining your expectations with those companies at the beginning so that you're not like people don't have the wrong idea about what you're able to deliver. And yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
Get to ride bikes. Yay.
Get to ride bikes. Yeah, I'm trying to think. That's sort of, that's sort of it for us. Like, we do it now via sponsorship, but for people who are interested in doing it, our recommendation is save some money so that you can afford to do it and you're not just, out of luck if it doesn't work out the way you planned, because you need to be able to make the time, or you need to be able to commit the time to doing this, or to doing freelance that it's going to take, and that's going to take a while. So yeah, make sure that you have some savings so you can actually do that, and then go for it and give it a try and try to get rid of as many other expenses as you can so that savings goes as far as you can possibly make it go.
Yeah, we had a question on YouTube from David if newer tax laws have affected what you can write off. We don't know. Are there new laws? I think we're pretty safely within the realms of what you can write off as a business.
Yeah.
We are fairly careful with it. We don't go too crazy. Almost all of our travel expenses are race related. If they're not, we don't write them off.
But we're basically always traveling to race or train.
And we keep really good records of everything using mint.com, which is totally recommend mint.com to anyone who wants to like do freelance stuff is a tax nightmare. It really kind of is. And I did my taxes in Australia 3 days before the due date, and I really thought I should get this like credit thing. So we spent
45 minutes on the
using
phone
all of our Australian data,
Australia,
like trying to call TurboTax, and then I didn't get the thing. Anyway,
it was pretty sad.
So don't procrastinate on your taxes,
Don't procrastinate
kids.
on your taxes.
Things are harder when you're doing freelance. It's easy to like go to work every day and get a paycheck and have stuff go into your retirement and have stuff go to taxes like automatically and like maybe get money back on your taxes. Like, whoa, wouldn't that be crazy?
And it's nice to know when you've got money coming in. Like every 2 weeks I get a paycheck, and that's there is one company that we work with who pays us in installments, and therefore we know, like, you know, every
There are a
month or
couple.
every other month. Well,
I would say with sponsorship, it's a lot more even than like freelance writing or
That's
something.
true.
Anytime you're doing like work for like anything online.
yeah.
Like
No, it's
online
a lot of
websites
work.
or, like,
You're following up with people and making sure you get paid. And for people who are just joining, we're talking about how we make money to do the things we do, and we travel all over the place, both in the U.S. in our van and internationally to race bikes. And we've been able to make that happen.
Yeah, so Emrad asked about medical. We are both children of Medicaid expansion right now. That will probably not last past this long, as soon as they calculate our basically 2016 returns. But we will still qualify for subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, which might not exist.
Hopefully it will still exist.
Yeah, stay tuned on that one. That could get really interesting really soon.
Yeah.
That's definitely a concern for us. Like right now, we're totally covered for anything emergent anywhere.
In the U.S.
Anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we buy travel insurance, when we travel abroad.
Always.
So totally covered for anything there, and then totally covered for any primary care when we're in New Mexico. Yeah, so like Mackey's, like he paid $12 for the antibiotics.
Which fortunately they were the cheap ones.
because they didn't cover prescription. We don't have prescription out of state, which is kind of a bummer, but the doctor was super cool and gave him like the cheapest antibiotics. But yeah, I would say healthcare is something that we're going to be losing sleep over here shortly, possibly.
Hopefully not. But
I think there are all sorts of horror stories of like pre-Affordable Care Act, like people, like I don't know, like bike accidents being a pre-existing condition.
Or racing bicycles professionally being a pre-existing condition.
Yeah, or I don't know if they
bummer.
call it that. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something we'll keep you posted on for sure. Right now is pretty good. I think even if we don't qualify for the insurance we have now, it should be fairly affordable through the New Mexico exchange.
Yeah.
Which is like we've talked about, that's the benefit of being able to write off so many of our living expenses, is that at the end of the day, yeah, I don't really lose sleep about much, so don't worry about it. Yeah, what was I saying? At the end of the day,
it's something that, that's something that everybody has to do. Is everybody has to get, well, at this point, everyone has to get health insurance, and, we are fortunate that our expenses are high enough that it equals out our income, so that our adjusted gross income, so what we pay taxes on and what they use to base eligibility for Medicaid, is such that we can afford, or that we get Medicaid. So we're really lucky there in that way.
Yeah, so, right, and I have to say, like, there's such a benefit and there's such a lag in, like, government and stuff figuring out, like, everything was based on, for this entire year, was based on our 2015 tax returns, where we made significantly less than 2016, and that's just, like, how they do it. So for us, we're like, okay, cool, we have a year to, like,
we've got another year
figure this
of buffer.
out. And I just turned 26 last year, so I was on my parents' health insurance up until that point, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing.
To respond to David on YouTube, he said he just got his adventure shirt. So,
which may look backwards if you're on
which
Instagram
is maybe
right
backwards, but we're glad you got it. Thanks for
store.
ordering one.
Available. And we should probably wrap this up because we're on the East Coast and it's like 9 o'clock now, which means when I start thinking about bed.
Sid's getting tired. Poor Sid.
Old. Oh yeah, we might as well answer the gnarliest crash question because
since we're talking about
Ricky
health insurance,
asked that a bit ago. You first. I guess there's like gnarly crash that was fine, and then like lame crash that ends up getting you like stitches and shit.
This was a lame crash.
It was a gnarly
that ended
injury.
up stitches. I have broken both hands at different times. Fractures in the 5th metacarpal on both of them. I have probably partially torn rotator cuff. At least once.
I think that one of your gnarliest crashes, would have been 2015. He was fine, but you overshot that jump
Oh, that was bad. Angel Fire.
Oh no, that wasn't even the one I was going to talk about.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Which one were you going to talk about?
I was talking about the one in Queenstown where it was like a hip jump that went like that, and Mackie just went like boo, and like off the side of a cliff, basically.
That was fine. That one was fine.
You were fine, but it was
the one I was thinking about was when I crashed. I overshot a jump at Angel Fire, and when I landed, my handlebar snapped off because I had crashed and scored it and hadn't replaced it, and it was a carbon handlebar. So
sorry,
it was so yeah, it was sort of like snapped off, and I sort of like watched it like go by my neck, and I was very glad that it didn't stab me in the neck because that would have been really bad.
So if you score your carbon handlebars,
replace them
immediately,
or just run aluminum handlebars.
I would say
Actually, I want to add one more.
Oh.
So possibly the most painful, maybe the most painful crash was racing Trans-Provence in 2015, and on like the first stage, or at least the first day, it might have even been the first stage, I crashed and tore my hamstring, and didn't know what tearing a hamstring felt like, and it was like I had this massive bruise like this side along the whole back of my leg, and just didn't. I was just like, oh yeah, I pulled a muscle a little bit. It kind of hurt, and it took me almost it took me like 6 months to finally like deal with it and get it taken care of, so that now it doesn't hurt anymore. But that was one of the longer ones.
Are no fun.
Yeah, Sid did it also a year later,
but not in a cool crash at all. I was on flat ground.
It happens.
I think my gnarliest crash was in Sun Valley last year, and I just basically clipped a pedal going like 28. No, it was 28, I think. Yeah, 28 to 30 miles an hour on a dumb little stump, and I don't remember what happened next. I basically tomahawked
the video.
Yeah, I had this camera on, and the camera fell off, and so you like it was like flying through the air as I was flying through the air or something. And you like watch my head like bounce on the ground. It's kind of bad. I wish I hadn't watched that one, to be honest.
Yeah, and then it took her a little while to get up, and then when she got up, she didn't remember what happened, and picked up the camera, and then took off and passed the guy who had passed her, and finished, and was not happy. It was sad.
Yeah. I don't know why that guy passed me. Also, I have some questions about that.
I mean,
I guess
you
I
were
looked
up
fine.
at that point.
Somehow
you were just running
moving.
up a hill.
I was just really confused.
Yeah.
So that one was bad. So yeah, crashes happen for sure. So yeah, I think we'll wrap this up here. We're happy to answer more questions in the YouTube comments. Probably doesn't work as well on Instagram, but yeah, really, we're just like happy to be a resource for you guys if you're interested in doing freelance stuff or sponsorship, anything like that. So feel free to reach out.
On YouTube, we'll have a card to our sponsorship course for the people who are interested in doing sponsorship stuff.
Because we go way more into detail in that than we ever could in a video.
But yeah.
Yeah, cool. So thanks
you for
tuning in. It was fun.
Check back next week. Good night.